India strikes back. U.S. auto tariff war ignites global trade showdown. A quiet trade war just exploded onto the global stage. In a move that stunned markets and triggered alarm in diplomatic circles from Washington to New Delhi, India has officially filed a request with the World Trade Organization to impose retaliatory tariffs on a wide range of U.S. imports. The scale is massive, the message is clear, and the consequences potentially devastating for both economies. This isn't just a dispute over cars. It's a full-blown trade crisis, one that threatens to upend fragile supply chains, hammer consumers, and ignite a broader global realignment against American economic policy. Let's unpack what just happened, what it means for everyday people, and why this seemingly targeted decision could reshape the entire global economic order. It started with a single announcement from Washington. Earlier this year, the United States implemented a 20% tariff on all automobile imports from India, citing national security and economic risk. The reasoning? Protect domestic manufacturing, create American jobs, push back against what the U.S. sees as unfair trade advantages held by foreign producers. But in New Delhi, the move was seen as something else entirely, an act of aggression. India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal called an emergency review of trade relations. The tone from Indian officials shifted overnight from cooperative to defiant. They weren't just angry. They were preparing to retaliate. And now they have. India has submitted a formal notification to the WTO's Council for Trade in Goods, proposing the suspension of concessions granted to the United States, essentially a legal, targeted economic counterstrike. According to the filing, India is seeking to impose tariffs on up to $878 million worth of U.S. goods. Annually, the estimated damage Indian auto exporters will suffer under the American tariff regime. This is not just diplomatic theater. It's a calculated escalation. India's proposed target list is wide-ranging and strategic. It includes agricultural products like almonds, lentils, and apples, processed food and dairy, textiles, and consumer electronics, and most notably, electric vehicles and auto parts exported. From the USTHI's last point is critical. American companies like Tesla and Ford, who have been pushing hard into India's growing EV market, now face significant roadblocks. Price hikes, regulatory hurdles, and public backlash, all at a time when competition from Chinese and Korean automakers is surging. Even more alarming? India may not be acting alone. Reports indicate that Vietnam, Thailand, Brazil, and even Japan are considering similar retaliatory moves. These countries, frustrated by the rising tide of American protectionism, are closely watching the WTO proceedings and preparing their own legal responses. What started as a one-on-one trade dispute is rapidly morphing into a coalition pushback against U.S. economic policy. For Indian consumers, the fallout is already visible. Cars from U.S. automakers are becoming noticeably more expensive. Dealerships in cities like Delhi and Mumbai
the repair
are
shops
reporting
began to
11
feel it.
16%
At the
price
state level,
increases on
governors
American
called
models.
emergency meetings.
Foot traffic
In
is
Indiana,
down.
labor boards
Buyers
issued
are backing
warnings
off.
about rising
And it's not
unemployment.
just about
In
cost.
Michigan, city
It's
mayors
about
begged.
confidence. In tech-savvy hubs like Bangalore and Hyderabad, the excitement around electric vehicles is fading. The American models were once viewed as aspirational. Now, they're overpriced and politically toxic. Meanwhile, on the other side of the globe, U.S. farmers are already paying the price. Shipments of almonds, dairy, and lentils to India are being quietly canceled or renegotiated under less favorable terms. Indian buyers, aware of potential tariff hikes, are seeking alternative suppliers in Australia, Brazil, and the EU. The impact? According to trade experts, U.S. agriculture could lose more than $600 million annually in export revenue if India's tariffs take effect. For struggling farmers in California, Wisconsin, and Michigan, that's not a statistic. It's a crisis. Here's the real danger for the United States. Exclusion. While Washington defends its tariffs in the name of domestic industry, India is building new bridges elsewhere. In the last 6 weeks alone, India has signed bilateral auto deals with South Korea and the European Union, expanded tariff-free auto part imports from Japan, and accelerated domestic auto manufacturing investment in collaboration with Chinese suppliers. Translation: the U.S. is being left behind. India has already overtaken Japan as the world's third-largest auto market, with over 3 million vehicles sold annually. It's a massive middle-class economy, hungry for electric, modern, and affordable transportation. If the United States loses that market, especially at this inflection point, regaining it may be impossible. One Indian negotiator recently told reporters, "India never negotiates with a deadline in mind. We negotiate with national interest in mind." That message wasn't for domestic consumption. It was aimed squarely at Washington. Ironically, the greatest economic pain may not fall on India, but on America itself. International automakers with factories in the U.S. like Hyundai, Toyota, and Kia are growing concerned. Their plants in South Carolina, Michigan, and Ohio produce vehicles specifically for export to Asia, including India. If Indian demand vanishes, those plants may face layoffs. Fewer export orders mean fewer American jobs, especially in regions already struggling with industrial decline. At the same time, global supply chains are rewriting themselves in real time. Freight companies are rerouting shipments away from U.S. ports. Indian e-commerce platforms like Flipkart and Tata Noi are delisting U.S.-made. Electronics logistics firms are scaling back U.S.-India container traffic and redirecting to Southeast Asia. From shipping schedules to warehouse inventories, the ripple effects are immediate and widespread. And for consumers, this means fewer choices, longer wait times, and higher prices, from tablets and phone chargers in India to turmeric and cotton fabrics in American grocery stores. So what exactly did the United States hope to achieve? Trade analysts suggest that the 20% tariff wasn't meant to punish India directly, but to send a broader message. America will no longer accept one-sided trade deals. The intent was strength, but the outcome looks like strategic failure. One former Obama trade official summed it up like this: "You don't win a global game of chess by flipping the board every few months. Tariffs create friction, not loyalty. And the cost of that friction is growing." India's retaliation is a case study in that cost. Now, all eyes turn to the World Trade Organization. India's request will undergo formal review to determine whether its proposed retaliatory tariffs meet WTO standards of proportionality and compliance. The process could take up to 60 days. But here's the twist: India has already hinted at going unilateral. If the WTO process stalls, becomes politicized, or is seen as biased, Indian officials say they are prepared to implement tariffs without approval, an unprecedented move that would risk an even deeper rupture. And this wouldn't just affect India-US ties. Countries like Mexico, the EU, Canada, and South Korea are monitoring closely. They, too, have grievances about American trade policy. If India moves first and faces no real consequences, a global wave of retaliatory tariffs could follow. Here's the most sobering part of this entire story. No one voted for this. This wasn't a referendum. It wasn't a campaign promise. It wasn't an act of public will. Yet ordinary people, families, consumers, small business owners on both sides are now paying the price. They're watching as prices climb, inventories shrink, export contracts vanish, jobs hang in the balance, all because of a policy meant to demonstrate economic control, but which now risks backfiring in the most damaging way possible. This isn't just a tariff dispute. It's a trigger for economic instability. a trigger for realignment, a trigger for supply chain disruption that could last years. There's still time to pull back. Trade experts agree that cooler heads, open dialogue, and sincere negotiation could bring this dispute back from the brink. But it would require humility from Washington, patience from New Delhi, and a recognition that economic war benefits no one. India is not just another trade partner. It is the fifth largest economy in the world, the most populous country, a crucial node in global manufacturing and consumer demand. If trade ties with India fracture beyond repair, the U.S. risks far more than temporary market loss. It risks global isolation at a time when stability is more valuable than ever. The next 60 days will decide more than just tariffs. They may decide the future of American influence in the world economy. So as the WTO prepares to